So that sounds like we talk this the breath prayer, that sense of God as you walk through life is there, but there's also kind of stop moments or pause moments are there as well.
Definitely both, and yeah, the times, yeah, we find God in our everyday lives, we notice him in our everyday lives, and there's the taking the time aside to do that. And really it's the taking time aside that enables us to do the other bit. I think if you don't take time aside, it's hard to really, it's easy to get distracted, or even we might miss what we're looking for. I think that taking time aside enables us to really savor what the flavor is, so to speak, and what the sense of being still with God is like, or what it's like to be in God's presence and just notice him in a room in quiet. And then so then later in the day, when we're stood in a queue at the supermarket, then it's, pausing, going, I know there's that phrase in one of the Genesis stories with Jacob, and he says something like, God was in this place and I didn't know it, or I hadn't perceived it before, or something like that. And yeah, but that kind of taking time deliberately aside means later on in the day we can go, God was in this place and I didn't perceive it. Yeah, so there's a definite need for both, and that the brother Lawrence, who I mentioned right at the beginning, who used this phrase, practicing the presence of God, and that was very much the core of his prayer. He still did his regular times of prayer, for which for him would have been 5 or 8 times a day. Deliberately set aside time. So it's not a choice between one or the other, or that one replaces the other, but that they work together.
Yeah, you started to make an interesting point just before this, that you notice it have a difference in your day when you spend time with God. Do you have any sort of examples of what that looks like for you?
Yeah, good question. Yes, one that comes to mind is I've got 2 examples of this actually. So the first one's the more positive one, the second one's the more negative one, in that order, strangely. We love our upward trajectories, don't we? Like this shows that we do a bit more of that kind of thing. Okay. Kind of up and down of things. But so I was stood at the sink. We'd finished our evening meal, and we'd kind of cleared up, but there's still stuff to be washed up at the sink. Everyone else had gone to watch some TV, and I was left at the sink doing the washing up and just looking out the window. But it was just this real moment of consolation of, oh wow, what a lovely moment this is. I'm washing the dishes, like I've got time to do this. I'm looking out the window, and look what's out the window. It was this, and God, you're here. Like I'm not alone in this, and this is a really lovely moment, and I was just really treasuring it. And I remember thinking, well, that was beautiful. Oh, and I'm so just so pleased that was an ordinary part of my life, as ordinary as washing the dishes. And then it must have been about 2 weeks later, I caught myself after I'd spent a few minutes doing this, of being same situation after dinner. I was at the sink, everyone was watching TV, and I was chuntering away to myself, wow, I'm here washing the dishes, and where are they? They're in there watching TV. Yeah, exactly. So the situation was pretty much exactly the same. I had the same view in front of me, the same window. I had pretty much the same dishes. Everyone else in the house was in the same location. There was just an internal difference in terms of how I was experiencing the moment, and it wasn't until after I was able to look back at it and go, hold on a minute, that was the same. There was just a different, where my attention was very different. So before, my attention had God in the view, and it wasn't God was in my attention, and therefore I was elsewhere. It was God was in my attention, and I was very present to what was in front of me, to the ordinariness of life, and it was very beautiful. And the other one, my attention was my own just discontentment and feeling dissatisfied with the situation.
I mean, we're shocked by that disgraceful behaviour. Obviously, we wouldn't ever do that. But
Yeah. Never grumble at the dishes. Or...
I was fascinated, isn't it? Because you've got the same situation, you've got the same, as you said, the same window, you've got the same job, the same circumstances. Even like God, presumably, is the same in that moment. Really, the only difference is kind of what's going on in here.
Yes, yeah. I mean, my attention wasn't on God in that way, so I wouldn't have known. But I can't imagine God chuntering to himself. So absolutely. And it's just a real reminder to me that there's different ways that I can engage in a very ordinary situation, and one can feel very life-giving, and one can feel like a bit of a spiral down into nothingness.
The Groundhog Day can be different, or something.
Yeah, exactly. And that film has a lot to talk about that, I think, actually.
Yeah, that's one for another podcast.
Yeah.
So, we talked about these stop moments then. Have you got any tips for us on what that looks like?
How to do that, nearly.
Yeah. Think about inner momentum, you talked about a little bit, or something.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. The breath thing can help, but also, one I quite like is there's a phrase that comes up in the Psalms a couple of times. So it's this phrase, "Be still and know that I am God." And actually, what's interesting is that the phrase comes up acknowledging that the world isn't, everything is not all rosy all the time in the world. There is difficulty in the world. So it's not just a trite saying. But it's a real invitation, and it's I love the way that it's like it's heard, like it's not like a human saying, "Oh, be still and know that God is God." It's this kind of voice to hear, like, "Be still and know that I am God." Oh. But the way that I've enjoyed engaging with that is to hear that phrase, so to say it to yourself, "Be still and know that I am God." And to pause with that, and then just to slowly reduce the phrase down, so taking a word off the end, and until it becomes just one word. So it's "be still and know that I'm God," pause, and then "be still and know," pause, "be still," pause, and then "be," and then just to rest in that space where it's just the invitation is to be, and then you realise, and I'm here. And it's a bit like the breath prayer I mentioned earlier, that I am here, you are here, we are here together. That you've asked me to be still, and I'm here, and I am with you, and then just to treasure that. And I think that reducing down then helps us, because there is some speed in us, and so the slowly reducing down to that one word. This slowly reduces that inner inertia or momentum that's in us.
It's funny, that "be still" feels like I'm trying to be still. Like I've got to work at it. So when you reject that word "be" out of the end of that journey is really quite different, isn't it? Where you go, okay, I've journeyed with God to a place of now not trying, not of doing, but just of settling into a space with God.
Yeah. Yeah,
absolutely. And then of course the phone pings and
there's some certain things. Actually, a good point. There's some certain things you can make it easy for yourself by just getting the environment a bit simpler before you start. Like phone to do not disturb. And that's actually a good point, because I think having somewhere to sit that is easy, that just makes that process easier. Turning the phone to do not disturb, closing the door, or just being somewhere it feels like you can, that's a space that you're giving over to this time. And then actually to just notice, I think the first thing is, often you sit in a space, and it's the first time you've sat in that space and been quiet in it, is you just start to notice the ordinary sounds of that space. So the heating being on and just going, which is a sound which is probably there all the time, or a lot of the time, and you hadn't heard it. or the neighbour's dog's barking, and there might be birds tweeting, but that you might like that one, so that's okay. So that's gonna happen. There's gonna be these background noises, and so acknowledge them. Just say, oh yeah, they're there, and then right, and that's fine. I won't fight them, because then you'll spend the entire time just fighting that distraction. So just acknowledge it, and then right, I'm gonna turn my attention to God, and then after that, like we talked about, you'll notice the stuff on the inside, the inner noises, and then do the same. Acknowledge them. And they're there, but we're just gonna orientate. My attention's not gonna go there. I'm choosing to put my attention towards God. And then these words, be still and know that I'm God, be still, enable us just to then, again, just to slow our pace down. And bring
what those inner noises? Sorry, you don't mean like your gurgly stomach?
Yeah, although you might notice that. The inner noises of, so like, the thing I need to get done, my to-do list, the thing I'm worrying about at the moment, the person whose affection I really want to receive in some way, the way that I want to make a difference in the world. Those things, they're there. They're part of our life. So yeah, they're there. I acknowledge them. That's not where my attention's going to go in this moment.
It's cool. It takes it into a space where those noises aren't actually bad, but they are just not a focus at that point.
Yeah, exactly. As soon as we start to, some will be better than others, but as soon as that kind of editing of, oh, this is a good one, this is a bad one, and some of them actually will be like very good or holy, of like, I've got this idea about God, or I could use this in a talk to explain God's goodness to someone. That's all very well and good, but it can just become noise. That's just this neat idea which we go down, and a bit of a kind of a rabbit which we chase, and then before we know it, we spent 5 minutes thinking about this wonderful idea we've had about God, rather than just being still with God.
Yeah. So is that difference? I can't pick the verse for the life of me, but it talks of a group of people that know about God and know of God, and then a difference between them and the group of people that know God, and that knowing the heart and where God is at actually can change completely how you choose to act and how you choose to live. It's good.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah. Difference between knowing about God to knowing God.
Yeah.
And there's something there with the taking time aside allows us to really get a sense of what it is to know God and what God's like, God's manner with us, God's way of being with us.
Yeah.
So then, in the other points of our day, we go, that's got that quality to it. This moment has the quality of how God was with me this morning, or how God has been with me every morning, because I've been doing that. It's got that quality to it. And then says, this is, again, probably another thing for another podcast, there's a kind of discernment thing in that, of like, this moment has, or there's something about this which doesn't have that quality to it. I'm not sure I'm as happy with that. But so that's one for probably another time.